Welcome to the Dangerous Man Podcast, where we talk about how to become a better man, take responsibility for our mission, create value for others, and the many failures and lessons we've learned along the way. Stay dangerous.
Good morning, dangerous men. What is going on?
Come on.
Even if it's not morning where you're listening to this, it's okay because it's morning somewhere. I'm your host, Adam Tuft, joined by co-host
John Castoris.
What is up, John? What is going on? We got something good today.
Hey, man, it's not 3 a.m., but, you know, every moment is the 3 a.m. challenge. We're here to do some crazy shit.
Yeah,
so.
it's a good morning to be dangerous on, right? Even though we're recording this at night.
Right, it's like almost 10 p.m.
Yeah, anyway, we got something really good for you guys today. We got an email from one of our listeners here, and me and John are going to talk about it because we think that it really applies to all men, or pretty close to all men. Maybe some men have gotten it figured out.
Really pulled on my heartstrings. So.
But yeah, it's really really important, and we want to talk about it today.
Yeah, here we go. So this listener says, "Hey guys, I've been having a really tough time getting out of bed lately. Every night I set my alarm with the best intentions, but when it goes off, I just keep hitting snooze, and it seems like half the morning goes by. I don't have much direction or purpose in my life right now. I used to be really into my work and hobbies, but lately, everything feels kind of pointless. I don't have a solid reason to get up, even though I know I should be doing something better with my life. I really want to make a change. I want to feel motivated and have a sense of purpose again. I know there's more to life than just going through the motions. How can I break this cycle of laziness and start living with intention? How do I stop the snooze button from ruling my mornings and my life? How do I overcome this and not be so exhausted every morning?"
Wow. I think this is just like a struggle that so many guys have. I've definitely struggled with this. John, I know you've struggled with this, where, you know, you may or may not have not gone to bed at the right time. You know, you might have stayed up and done some stuff.
Are you looking at me? Oh,
myself too. I would turn my eyeballs back in my head, but I'm not really, like, I'm not a lizard. So, or am I? No.
No, you're right. You're right.
But so I look at myself when I say this too.
I was just turning around like he was looking at someone behind you.
Yeah. You could have got up or not gone to bed at a good time, and then when your alarm clock goes off, everyone knows this feeling. If you ever hear the sound of your alarm outside of when it's time to get up, it like, ooh, you have like a visceral feeling of like, because it just sucks. And sometimes you wake up and you know, if your alarm clock is right next to you, you just slap that bitch and go back to bed, roll over. I know that I've put it across the room. I've gotten like out of bed, hit it, and went back to bed. Even though the reason why it's across the room is because then I'll already be standing up.
Dude, it's so crazy, man. The amount of acrobatic things I've done with my alarm clock to get me out that have inevitably failed, you know. And it's led me to think about a lot of what goes into it. And I think you and I were talking, you know, this would have been probably about a year ago.
Yeah.
We really had kind of a good terminology that we were like, well, it's not just that you got to do this or that, but there's something more going on under the surface.
Yeah.
You kind of remember.
Yeah. So this was kind of like when me and John were trying to like before I had really gotten into fitness, and same with John, where we were like trying to get into it. So we were trying to get up early in the morning before everything and like go to the gym. And we found ourselves really struggling with like trying to get up and do all these things that we were trying to do.
Like 6 a.m. or something.
6 a.m. like go to the gym immediately. Like
we were living together at the time.
Yeah, we were living together at the time, and we wanted to be like, get up and go to the gym immediately. Which is like, we live in Minnesota, and I think we were starting this in the winter. So you have to like get up immediately, go out into the cold. It's just like, and you're wearing gym clothes at the same time too. So you're like out in shorts and t-shirt. You're like, it's so cold.
Wakes up, puts on light jacket, shorts, and shoes. Walks into the frozen tundra of Antarctica, a.k.a. Minnesota.
Yeah.
What a great way to start your morning.
Yeah, it was a great way to start a morning. But me and John at one point talked about this thing called bed logic. And we kind of came to calling it bed logic because it's like, well, when you wake up and you're in bed and you hear your alarm clock going off, your brain will come up with any excuse to stay in bed. Just stay in bed and roll over and go back to bed to your nice dream. Even if it was just a dream of you in a public bathroom that had 300 urinals. You just want to go back to that dream. Even though it doesn't make any sense that your work is also your school. But you want to go back to that dream because it's better than going out into the frozen tundra to go to work out. So that's what your bed logic does. And like you'll make up all these excuses to be like, oh, well, if I have to go to work, well, let me, do I really need an hour? Like, I don't need to make a full breakfast. I can just, eat some cereal really quick. I don't really need to try to read.
I can move my schedule around.
Yeah.
I don't have to read every day.
Yeah.
I read an email. I read an article once that said you only have to read once a week.
Yeah.
So I can move that.
If I drive 20 miles over the speed limit, I'll get to work a couple minutes faster.
I can grab a bar to go instead of a nice healthy breakfast.
Yeah.
I love supporting the cereal companies. Seems logical, right?
Yeah, it seems logical in the moment because it's like, oh, I'm just trying to stay in bed longer. But it's really, you just end up being like, it starts your day off wrong, and then you kind of beat yourself up because you're like, I'm trying to get up and meditate or pray in the morning and do my reading and eat a healthy breakfast before I go to work, and I actually don't want to feel like I'm wake up and then have to hurry the entire time until I get to work because I feel like I'm hurrying at work, and then I never have a little moment for myself in the morning. And it's like you want to maybe do these things because just like in this email, he's saying I want to do stuff better with my life. But this bed logic is kind of what's holding him back. But there's kind of three main reasons for bed logic that kind of me and John have kind of figured out here by just kind of thinking about why don't we want to get up? And not just because we don't want to go out into the frozen tundra. It's summer now. It's actually kind of nice to go outside. So what are the reasons besides I don't want to go out cold? Because I feel like that's a normal reaction for most people. But
yeah, I have a couple thoughts here.
Yeah.
And like we said, I think it has way less to do with is your alarm clock by your bed or is it across the room or, this or that? I think you can do all these physical changes to your environment. And I just found it didn't really matter.
No, it doesn't.
Because you always would pick bed logic.
I literally move my alarm clock across the room. Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. And so what I kind of was really reflecting on over the last year or so was, well, if I had certain 3 causes of bed logic that really I come back to bed logic trying to make decisions for pleasure in the moment. And that's kind of what I define another related to bed logic is kind of instant gratification, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously getting out and doing all of my things are way better for long term, But if I had some health issue, like if I had any, really, really behind on sleep and had huge headaches or just fatigue, right, of any sort, or I've had all kinds of gut issues and stuff where I genuinely was just really not feeling great and would spend more days where I would just axe all my plans and stay in bed for a few more hours. That could be a legitimate cause, but kind of moving right along, I found really one of the biggest things in my life to be, and this kind of gets into my story a little bit, having a lack of hope. And I kind of define it as this, that when I visualize the day or when I visualize my future, I cannot visualize it going well. I don't visualize hope. I don't see good things coming for me. I don't see a mission or direction or purpose for my day. And so I tend to listen to that voice of bed logic and just stay in bed, kind of as that the listener was sending that email in. It's I have a hard time getting out of bed. I don't really have much purpose and direction. It's like, yeah. And that logic to stay in bed, that comes from that. I think that's, in my opinion, the greatest thing to keep you in bed is I don't see something good happening for me. And the reason I would say that is because, this was a couple years ago now. Was going into the summer 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam and I were actually working for a junk removal company. And I didn't have a job. And then I finally found one. It's kind of a long story, but I got this job and man, I had to get there by like 6:30 a.m. And it was such an exhausting manual labor job.
You start at 7 a.m.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, dude, did I want to not get out of bed every freaking day. One, I wasn't doing anything with my life. Like I was living with a family, and I'm so grateful for this family that I got to live with because my parents had moved out of state. So I lived with this family at the time. This was kind of coming out of college, right? And I didn't know what I was doing. I did not enjoy my work at all. It was the worst environment. A lot of the people there, except Adam, were just super negative all the time. And I felt completely drained and depressed. And this is the time, if you guys have heard some of my story, that I started, hiking. If I wasn't at work, I started hiking and training for a long distance hike. I was trying to do something great with my life, which was just, can I train for a 300-mile solo hike? But before that, I had no reason to get out of bed. I had nothing in my life that was going for me. And every time this is the key, every time I thought about that day or the future, all I saw was discomfort, misery, pain, and nothing good. Like I didn't see a job where I was getting paid much. I could not visualize a career that I enjoyed. There was no smile on my face when I thought about it. And it just continued to happen over and over again like this. And to me, that just drained me of all my energy. And even when I slept a full night, I woke up and was still exhausted because this emotional drain on my life where I had no mission or purpose to get me out of bed. I could not visualize a person that I wanted to love, like a wife or family, or like people in my work that I worked with. I didn't have any customers that really gave me life that I wanted to get out of bed and serve. And, that was kind of my story, really, of, that's kind of the origins of bed logic in my life. And the turning point for me, this kind of aha moment I had was this hike where I was like, you know what? This is like something great that I can pursue, doing 300 miles, right? Going on this journey, this solo trip where I could prove myself as a man. And I began to not really want to get out of work for bed or get out of bed for work, but I did want to get out of bed so I could go hiking. And I looked forward to it. And I would play podcasts and music while I hiked for 10 miles a day or 5 miles or whatever I did. And it would just fill me with, I just visualized like dreams and things I could do. And like, it was creative, and I was in the sun, and I got my body physically moving I wasn't just in bed. Like my body was moving, my mind was going, my belief was high. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but at least I was doing something. And, for me, that's like bed logic always existed in my life when I didn't know what I was doing. But the days I was excited to get out of bed and have a mission, their bed logic was pretty lame. That logic kind of was easy to cut through, or it wasn't there at all. So
you feel like when you set out to actually like, I'm training for my hike today, that's when you didn't really have bed logic and you could actually get out of bed a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I think it really, your life rises and falls. I believe this. Your whole life rises and falls to your level of belief and your level of excitement to be able to go out and do some sort of mission or serve somebody. I certainly found that to be true. And to the writer of this email, I definitely found that to cure that for me.
Yeah. So you're talking about like finding a purpose kind of in, okay, I can go, not to say that's like the greatest purpose. Like I could do a 300-mile hike. I'm like, good for you. But like there's greater things that we've talked about on the podcast, but that might be a good starting place for a lot of people.
Something,
but it's kind of like, how do we find that purpose? Like I think a lot of people would talk to me about like, oh, what do you want to do? What do you want? It's the classic question. Like, when you're like a senior in high school or whatever, it's like, oh, what are you doing next year? What are you trying to do with your life? What are you going for?
Classic.
And I remember getting frustrated a lot by this because I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I did know that I wanted to do something that meant something. So I guess like how do you find, a purpose as a man?
Yeah. there's a lot of ways we could answer this. And I think ultimately I want to kind of get into it with this story. And I think this will guide us to a good place. So there's awesome kind of mentor of ours, great influencer and author and speaker and entrepreneur by the name of Tony Robbins.
Awesome dude.
If you don't know this guy, please YouTube him. In fact, we'll give you a specific video that you can look up at the end of this episode on what you can do to overcome this bed logic and this kind of depression in your life. And it comes from him. And the story I want to share is fascinating. He's had more breakthroughs in the fields of psychology than psychologists have. And he's just like, his passion is he goes and does these events. And he's he's kind of a life coach for people like Oprah and different presidents and athletes. He's coached them to the highest levels of success. And his big passion though, he's fed over 1 billion people meals that didn't have food.
Wow.
Like he funded this out of different charities or different businesses he built. And his thing is he just wants to help people because he had a great story of overcoming these, like a lot of abuse in the home as a kid. And he really found a way to transition and heal himself and move on and to get into his purpose as a man. And now he does these huge conferences, conventions, 6-day, 12-hour a day type deals. And he brings people through these exercises and through these talks that just educate them on how to look at life and how to go out and thrive as humans. It's so cool. Please look him up on YouTube. But his thing he was talking about was he found out the science behind some of these methods of your body. He was like, I mentioned being in bed, right? And your body's not moving and all that. He'd be on stage and they actually hooked up these different devices to his brain, to his limbs. They'd measure his saliva every hour. And by they, I mean these interested researchers. They're like, could we go do a study?
So like scientists are like measuring how much saliva he puts out and
what
like
was in compounds in
what's
his
going
saliva.
on in his nervous system.
Yeah.
Like if you think about like the little dots that they put on people.
Like the kind of magnetic readers on his heart, on his brain. And interestingly enough, because they wanted to measure what is the different levels of energy mapping and what's happening in his heart is electromagnetic and in his brain activity, like while he's on stage through these different things. Because for instance, he's like, I would jump up and down 1,000 times on average in an event.
Wow.
Because he just getting his body moving, getting the crowd up and moving. And anyways, so they're like, this guy he's doing something. We need to see what's up with him. And what they found was when they mapped all these other people in the crowd, they did a similar thing. They even did where there's people streaming in from different countries, like 5 or 6 different countries around the world. And they did the same exact sensors. Like the same company went out. We're like, we want to see what's happening in other parts of the world, different time zones, even through virtual online, attending this event. And this is what was crazy, Adam. He'd get onto stage and these different like levels of emotion and energy would just be like insane. Like
super high.
Yeah. And they found all these different people in the audience. They would be like fearful or kind of depressed or have anxiety.
Like low energy.
Yeah. And they were all over the place. If you looked on a chart, you would see these lines up and down.
So some of them would be like kind of coming in high energy. Some of them would be like in the dumps, like depressed. Some of them would be kind of in the middle.
Yeah. And you can think of these lines as like a flowy line. Like I'm moving my hand up and down, like
a
sticking
wave.
it out, like a wave outside the window, right? And they could see these different variety of levels and activity levels. And they saw, his was like tons of energy and movement. And within like a few minutes, 30 minutes for sure, but most of them even sooner than that, every single person in the crowd they had mapped, which was like a sample size of probably a couple hundred out of the several thousand that are there.
Yeah. And
all these other people in other countries completely, get it, synced with his. Completely.
So like the same
ups and downs.
Ups and downs, exactly.
Exactly.
Wow.
And what he would do with these people is he would get them up and moving their bodies, and he would get them speaking out loud, like different, affirmations to get them excited. And he'd focus on things like gratitude and different memories they had of love and think about dreams you want to do and where you want to go with your life. And Adam will talk a little bit more about this, and they just found that their whole biochemistry and their physiological like reactions and chemical levels in their body and in their brain would completely shift and would match his and would elevate. And he would bring them into this, and then he would bring them into a state of fear and cortisol spikes. And then he'd bring them back into this phase of belief and hope and energy, and then back into like fear and kind of doubt, and then back and forth and back, like 60 times within a conference event.
Yeah.
And they had been so immersed out of their normal environment in his conferences, and they had trained going in and out so many times that he's like, when they're in fear, when they're in doubt, and when they're experiencing life like Rocky, they have now built the muscle 60 times to be able to get back into a state where they could change their brain chemistry and their body physiology. 60 times they built this, like, he's like, it's like a muscle, you got to work it out so you can, at any time they could do those exercises to change their whole biochemistry.
So this whole time they're all matching up like energy wise with him, like positive and negative, and he kind of brings them into a state of fear or negative, or into like a spirit of like love and joy and gratitude, like positive. So he'll like actually like push them into each one.
Yes.
But move them through, like you said, like 60 times over the course of the event. And because of that, then they'll be more familiar with moving from a state of fear to a state of, like fear, depression, into a state of like joy and love and gratitude. Like so negative attitudes to positive attitudes.
Right.
And they'll get basically have the tools to do that because he'd taken them in and out kind of so many times, kind of like doing reps when you're working out.
Exactly.
Wow.
Because he says, I could tell you how to do that. And you would psychologically in your head go, well, that makes sense. But until you've experienced doing it like 60 times and getting the physical practice, he's like, now you can actually have the tools and the muscle memory to do that anytime you want.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where it gets into this next part. Like, that's the science behind like the whole idea. And then there's been I'll end with this. There's a lot of authors. Caroline Leaf is one of them. And we've talked about this in the show. You can completely shift your brain chemistry.
Yeah.
You can even shift the types of patterns you have with fear or doubt or belief. It's possible to reprogram your whole brain chemically on a chemical level.
Like, if you think about all of the, just like, it's
so
called,
cool.
It's called neuroplasticity. We've talked about it on the show before.
Oh yeah.
But you can think about your brain being made of a lot of different wires or ropes, and they're all going to each other and are connecting different thoughts and whatnot. So the thing is neuroplasticity, basically, they used to think that like once your brain was like set in a certain way, it was just going to be that way. But now through more modern science, they've found out that actually, even if your brain's set a certain way, you can actually do things to rewire and reshape your brain to be the way that you want it to be. So basically, you are not a
come on, dude. It's so cool.
You're not a victim of like how your brain got shaped from your childhood. You know, like you actually can choose what your brain's going to do. And we've also talked about this on the show 100%. Before, like the subconscious versus the conscious. Like the subconscious is way stronger than the consciousness when it comes to your actions. However, through specifically doing certain things consciously, you can influence the subconscious and rewire the subconscious, which is basically just your physiological, like your brain structure.
And that's what this writer of this email, that's what you're experiencing, is you're experiencing this lull in your purpose and your mission, and these negative experiences of hopelessness and despair, right? And you and scientifically, we have the tools now to completely shift out of that into something meaningful and awesome. And so we want to leave you guys with a tool here, a really practical tool. And Adam has some, we've had some great discoveries here. And why don't you take it away, Adam?
Yeah. So this is also from Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins has this is one of the activities that he goes through in his events. It's called priming. And it's like priming. What is it?
Optimus Prime?
Optimus Prime? Are we drinking Logan Paul's drinks? What are we doing? What? Like, what's priming?
Rest, so, you just drink an energy drink and you give us 2029 and then we make bank and you guys, and never mind.
And not an ad. Anyway, Logan Paul, you owe us money. Anyway, So priming, you can think about it as like preparing something, or if you're priming like an oil pump, you'll put a little more like oil on it or something like that.
Like the lawnmower, you press that little bubbly button.
Yeah, you prime it with a little bit of oil, pressing the button on the lawnmower. Yeah.
Yes.
But Tony Robbins basically says that your environment is always priming you for certain behaviors. Like they had a study where, like in a wine shop, if they played, Italian music over the speakers, like 70% of people bought Italian wine. And restaurants, when they're really busy, they'll play certain music that is a little bit faster paced, that gets you to eat faster, so you'll eat faster and get out, so they can kind of like replace you with another guest, so they can have, get more volume for the night.
Wow.
So companies use this to you priming you to get certain behaviors out of you. And Tony Robbins says that you're always getting primed by your environment for certain reactions and actions that you take. So either your environment is priming you or you're priming yourself. And this exercise that Tony Robbins does is a way to prime yourself.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for the last several days, and it has been like
Me too.
pretty much life-changing, honestly. The first time I did it, I cried and laughed my butt off. So that's
I was there. I can testify.
Yeah. John was there. He can say. But it's
I think I cried twice the first time I did it.
Yeah, it's wild, dude. It's wild. Because
it's a good cry, by the way.
Yeah, tears of joy. Tears of joy. Yes. Because I think so many times, especially like the listener that emailed us, like we are so often focusing on the bad things in our life and only seeing like the negative and how things could be better but aren't. But with priming, it's some breath exercises to kind of like get your body kind of moving and feeling stuff and making sure you got enough oxygen. And I don't know exactly how all it works. I just know that it works. And then Tony takes you through because I literally just like play the video that we'll have linked in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And just follow along with him. That's the easiest way to do it. But it's breathing exercises, and then he invites you to think about things that you can be grateful for.
Yes. And
different other positive emotions, what you can be proud of. What are like, great moments in your past? Like these, it's mostly gratitude at first, if I remember correctly. But there's so many different like moments and stuff that he brings to you that's like, okay, recall like good things that are happening, good memories, and relive them as if they're happening now. So you remember all of the little different aspects of those. What is it? Why was that joyful? Why are you grateful for that? Why is it a great moment?
What were you feeling? What were you thinking?
Yeah. So it brings it all to mind, and then you almost like feel as if you're there. And then later on, he goes through a couple of things to like help you like feel like to remember the best parts of your life, but then also to, that joy that you've now like gotten from those memories and from the things that you're proud of, and actually kind of like send that out to the other people that are around you. And through some of that visualization, you might be able to get a little tinge of what your purpose might be, because when you like in it, you picture, yourself like giving other people joy. And that can lead you to be like, oh, right, that's okay. How can I bless this person? How can I love this person? How can I be kind to this person? It makes you think about that in a pretty subtle way, where it's not like, it's not like a intellectually dense thing. It's just like, it's almost just kind of like a joy-filled experience. I want to say joy, I think is that's the best word for it.
I think that's a great way to put it. You want these amazing things to happen to these people.
Yeah.
And you start to, think about that
and
wish that for them,
It gives towards, if you already know your purpose, it fuels that to go towards it. If you don't know your purpose already, it can give you some direction of, oh, I want to impact these people's lives. How do I do that? How do I love these people? And it can kind of grow from there. But also part of it is future pacing and seeing your goals and the things that you want to achieve and thinking about how you're going to feel, what's it going to look like when they're done, when they're completed, already done, already finished, you're there. In the moment, it's done, it's completed, and knowing what that feels like when it's completed. And I think the first time I did this, some of these things were like kind of hard for me to think of because I just hadn't really been thinking about them a lot. But through this exercise, I actually thought of more of them. And like I thought of like goals and dreams and achieving things that I hadn't really even had really thought about before.
Or at least in a while, huh?
Yeah, at least in a while. But I think sometimes not even really like, maybe I've thought about them before, but like very rarely, if ever.
Yeah, sure.
But then it's like, wow, that would feel amazing. Wow, I want that. Wow, I'm going in that direction. It's just
what was some of the things that you thought about? I'm curious when you first did this, or maybe the last few days.
There's a lot that come back, but a lot of them are just like moments of when I gave, like I felt proud of, when I was in front of a large group of people and entertained them really well and made them laugh, and you're like really made their day essentially, and just like really entertain them in other ways. And so like I can think of those times that I'm proud of, but also like just good moments. Whether that's me talking to my brother, just in our bunk beds, talking about just random life stuff, just being really grateful for that.
This is when you were a kid, yeah?
Yeah, when I was a kid. And like just being grateful for that, as well as like, but even like looking into the future, stuff that I didn't necessarily like think would come up was like I'd pictured before, like holding my nieces as like a beautiful thing, a beautiful little moment when they're a little bundle of joy, where they're a newborn baby. It's just holding a newborn baby. There's something special about it. If you haven't held a newborn baby, highly recommend. Just don't steal somebody's. But
so cute though.
They're so cute. They're just a little bundle of joy. But when I was like thinking about my future, I thought about holding my future son.
Wow.
Which is something I had never really thought about before. Because it's like, why would I think about that? I think that's like a ways off. I can't even know when that is yet. It's like, I'm not married. I don't plan on having kids before I get married.
Yeah.
And I don't know who I'm getting married to yet. So
that's not like what you think you would have thought about.
Yeah, that's not what I thought about. But in future pacing in that moment, that was something that was like looking in the future and thinking about what it would feel like to, hold my newborn son is like me holding a little version of myself and being able to like, I don't want to get too much into it, but it's like me being able to hold a little version of myself.
Wow.
And I think about all of the pain that I've been through in my life. And it's like a little version of myself. I get to help him through those things. And it's almost like I get to be the father to myself in a little way, because it's a little version of me. Now, obviously, like my son isn't me, but like there's just something beautiful about that, I think.
He's a little dangerous man that you
Yeah, a
get to
little dangerous.
help him make his mark on the world, yeah.
Adam Jr., even though I don't know if I want to name my kid Adam Jr., but I don't know what he'll be named yet. So, but
It's such a beautiful story, though.
yeah, it's just wild. That was I think that was one of the moments where I cried a little bit
Yeah.
of like joy. It was
Yeah.
a special experience where I'm like, I didn't think that was like in my mind, and I didn't think I was going to like see that, but I think this is a really
I love that,
cool
man.
tool, this
Wow.
priming by Tony Robbins. I got really into this kind of like,
Yeah. No, I did want to hear some of the things
yeah,
you thought about.
it's such a powerful like experience.
Yeah.
And I think the first time was definitely the most powerful time I've had doing it. But I think the other times, I think that's the first time is because I didn't actually know what to expect.
Yeah.
And it just slapped me really hard. Because
Yeah.
John was just like, hey, you should do this. And I'm like, okay.
We all
Yeah.
we all just sat down and did it. And it was freaking
Yeah.
awesome, man.
You, me, and Pete.
Yeah. And I discovered this video on YouTube because I was just Googling like things like, you know,
Mhm.
I was just curious looking at things like depression and different anxiety and I know Tony Robbins has a swell of amazing resources and I was like, I never really explored much of his stuff on this, and so the tool is a video we're going to link here called it's the priming exercise he does, about 15 minutes long. But I just wanted to close on this last thought here, that essentially priming to shift from, if you're in a state of despair, like this guy that wrote this letter that's kind of struggling to get out of bed in the morning, prime to shift from despair into gratitude, right?
Mhm.
But this idea that I can discover my purpose when I am in a state of internal love, joy, and peace and gratitude. But when I'm experiencing fear and doubt and worry in my body, that my physiology and my biochemistry in that state leads me into a lot of cortisol, which is stress hormone. And it's just virtually impossible to experience good emotions and to have creativity and joy and good ideas and even results like in health and at the gym, you know, like a lot of your healing systems turn off in the body. And so this is a beautiful tool that I want you guys to, you know, commit to you doing this for 7 days, for a week. Maybe you commit to it for a month. Tony Robbins does this every morning. I've started doing it every morning when I drive to work, and experience this. You're moving your body, you're moving your mind, and what you focus on, shifting from these negatives, your subconscious will experience in your body, in your emotions, what you focus on. And if you focus on fear and these memories or these, oh my gosh, what if this happens? Oh, I worry about this. Oh, and you're visualizing these scenarios that haven't happened yet, and it's all just fear, you are quite literally going to experience it. There's been a lot of research that shows you will experience it in your body real time. Your subconscious does not know the difference between what's happening real right now and what's in your mind. It can't determine the difference. And so when you feel locked in that and you can't get out of it, this is a great tool to use to literally break that tie, take control over, and shift into the type of emotions, feelings, and vision and in the love you experience in your body that you want to. And a lot of times you just hear people talk about being a man as grit. It's just being willpower. You just got to, fucking do it. Get out of bed, get shit done. And sure, there's a place for that. But in my experience and a lot of the research that Adam and I have been reading, and we've been reading a few different books on this, it's been blowing our minds, is you're literally shooting yourself in the foot when you're trying to just beat your head against a wall and you're in a state of fear and worry. But shift your physiology and your brain chemistry and love and joy, and these things just start happening. Yeah. And doors just start opening. And you just walk around with creativity and possibility and joy. And people just look at you different. You treat them different. You get different results because your body is experiencing that in your nervous system. And it's just very powerful. So I wanted to paint this as a really powerful tool that we want to give you guys. Probably one of the best things we have recommended that you guys do as a daily morning. Yeah. On that note, man.
Yeah. So that was a lot of stuff. But really, to the guy that sent in that email, yeah, man, seems like you're struggling with your bed logic winning a lot. We kind of went over some causes of that. So, like, if your health's bad, fix that. Like, go to bed a little bit earlier, make sure you're hydrated.
Mm-hmm.
You can do some research on that. You definitely can. And then try to find your purpose.
Yes.
And it sounds like you didn't really have much of a purpose, though, other than knowing that you kind of need one. So really, I think go to that video that we're going to link in the description and do the priming exercise and focus on like the good things that are in your life. And just like know that there's the good, know that there's the beautiful, know that there's the true things in your life that you can go after. And it's not always going to be this way. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Both me and John have been in the place that you have been.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've seen the light. Sometimes there's other tunnels that we kind of find ourselves in too. It's not all like, oh, once I fix this thing, then all my life is great. And it's a bit
of a journey.
Yeah. Just because you get out of it for a little bit doesn't mean that you won't go back in for a little bit, but it's a journey. You want to go, higher up the mountain, not staying where you are, and keep going after it. So I just really want to encourage anyone else that has any questions for me or John, just to send those in at the email that we have in the description of the podcast here. John, what's the email again?
I will put it in there once I create it.
Okay. Anyway,
this one just found my personal email. So, but we'll put an official podcast.
Yeah, we'll put an official email in there. That was just like to one of John's personal emails.
Yeah.
So we'll put that in there, and just kind of imagine what would happen if all of the guys listening to this podcast right now, if all the guys wanting to be dangerous men and the dangerous men out there, like, didn't, like, we're able to fight against their bed logic and every day get out of bed. Maybe you prime, or maybe you're already primed from the night before. And you want to just get up and go after your purpose and really serve other people and love other people and create value for other people. And from that, you also receive so much.
Yes.
Like how different would the world be? And like, how quickly could we change, our political environment, our economic environment? How fast could we actually change things if the dangerous men out there that are listening to this podcast, like, started every day with remembering their mission and being grateful for the things that have happened that are good, and really visualizing what they could possibly do in the future and what that would feel like to accomplish those things. Wow.
Come on, dude.
Like, I was trying to figure out how to like land the plane there, and I'm like, wow, that was just, I was talking to myself, but I'm really excited for what me and John got coming down the pipeline here in the future, boys. We're working on some video stuff right now.
Oh yeah.
So you'll be seeing our faces a lot more coming up here.
It's gonna be crazy.
So
dude.
we're really excited for what we're going to be rolling out in the future. So share the show if you thought it was good, if you liked it, if you thought it was interesting, if you made you laugh, anything like that. But guys, just make sure you're fighting that bed logic, and stay dangerous.
Share the show if you want to help other men embrace danger and become truly great. You've been listening to The Dangerous Man. Join us next time. Until then,
Claim your greatness
and stay dangerous.